Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Catherine Dawson. Dawson was shot and killed on Saturday, July 21st, 2001 in the 19,000 block of Slater Avenue in Compton, according to LA County coroner records. Ali Wayne Hawkins and Joe Patrick Gaines were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. Defendant Hawkins, who was 16 at the time of the incident, testified he lived down the street from defendant Gaines. They had known each other for 9 years and had gone to junior high school together. According to Hawkins, Gaines belonged to a neighborhood Crip gang. Hawkins did not belong to a gang. On July 21st, 2001, defendant Gaines came over to defendant Hawkins' house, told him to get dressed, and said they were going to go visit a girl named Nicole. They walked to defendant Gaines' house and went into his bedroom. Gaines took out a gun from beneath his bed and told defendant Hawkins to carry it, explaining that Hawkins would most likely go home if he were caught with the gun, whereas Gaines would do some serious time. They then walked the 3 blocks to Nicole's house. They went up to Nicole's front door and defendant Gaines knocked. Victim Catherine Dawson, a woman Hawkins did not know, opened the door. Defendant Gaines asked about Nicole, who was the victim's granddaughter. Defendant Gaines and the victim talked a little, and then the victim invited them in. They all sat in the living room. Defendant Hawkins still had the gun. After a short time, the victim went into the kitchen. Defendant Gaines gave defendant Hawkins a signal, holding his hand up and moving his index finger as though he was pulling the trigger of a gun. Defendant Hawkins understood the signal to mean he should either rob or shoot the victim. After Gaines made the motion the second time, Hawkins told him no. When Gaines started to reach for the gun, Hawkins handed it to him. Defendant Gaines went into the kitchen, pointed the gun at the victim, and said, "Give me the money." The victim screamed. Defendant Hawkins stood up. The victim got her purse and dumped the contents onto the floor. Defendant Gaines handed the gun back to Hawkins and began picking up money from the floor. Defendant Gaines ordered the victim to the back room, and Hawkins followed them down the hall with the gun still in hand. When the victim reached the back bedroom, she tried to lock the door, but defendant Gaines got the door open and punched the victim in the head. Defendant Gaines grabbed the pillow and started to smother the victim. He told defendant Hawkins to shoot her. When Hawkins refused, Gaines ordered him to hand over the gun. Hawkins testified he gave the gun to Gaines, who shot the victim in the head through the pillow. Defendant Gaines found a plastic shopping bag to put the bloody pillow in. He ordered defendant Hawkins to check the victim's wallet. Hawkins testified he only pretended to go through the victim's wallet, although he admitted taking 2 or 3 quarters. Gaines made a call on his cell phone and told someone, "Come get me." Gaines gave the gun back to Hawkins and they left the victim's house, with Gaines carrying the bloody pillow inside a plastic shopping bag. 15 minutes later, Leo came to pick them up. According to defendant Hawkins, Leo belonged to the same gang as defendant Gaines. Hawkins testified that after they got into Leo's car, Gaines said, "I popped that bitch." When Leo said, "What?" Gaines said it again, "I popped that bitch." And Leo said, "Shoot her?" Gaines said, "Yeah." And Leo said, "She dead?" Gaines said, "Yeah." Leo told defendants to lie down while he drove to Gaines' house. Leo testified defendant Gaines called him that day around 12:30 p.m. asking for a ride. Leo drove to the designated spot and saw defendants on the street. Defendant Gaines was carrying a shopping bag. When they got to Gaines' house, Leo, Hawkins, and Gaines went inside. Gaines put the gun under his mattress. A few days later, Leo watched Gaines dig a hole in his backyard and bury the gun. The victim's daughter, S, testified she had spoken to her mother that morning and made plans to go shopping. When S arrived at about 1 p.m., the door to her mother's house was open. She went in and found her mother on the floor in the back bedroom. After the murder, she learned the victim had been keeping a lot of money in her house. She testified defendant Gaines and his family had been to the victim's July 4th party that year, and at one point, defendant Gaines had gone into the house to get something to eat. S's brother had once dated defendant's mother. Nicole, who was S's niece, had been living with the victim up until 2 months before the murder. The autopsy showed the victim had died from a single gunshot wound to the right temple. The bullet was still in her head. An analysis showed it had been fired from the gun defendant Gaines buried in his backyard. LA County Sheriff Detective Christine Carnes arrested defendants and Leo 5 days after the murder. Defendant Hawkins admitted he had been inside the victim's house, but he claimed defendant Gaines had committed the robbery and the murder. Detective Carnes had no evidence Leo had been at the crime scene. Defendant Gaines' relative gave Detective Carnes the murder weapon. Carnes confirmed one of the pair of pillows was missing from the victim's house. Following the trial, the jury convicted defendants of special circumstance murder, burglary, robbery, attempted robbery, and found true the gun enhancement. The court sentenced defendant Gaines to a term of life without the possibility of parole, plus 25 years to life. The court sentenced defendant Hawkins to 35 years to life. Catherine Dawson was 73 years old at the time of death.